Welcome to the Phoenix Conversations. Second chances, fresh starts and powerful new chapters. I'm Lucy Makara, author and entrepreneur, and each week I talk to men and women who've lived through turning points and come out brighter on the other side. So if you're standing on the edge of change or just need proof that it's never too late to start again, it would be great if you could subscribe now to the podcast. Today, I'm talking to SAFARAZ Ali MBE, who I know best from having worked with him since 2017 on the Business Book Awards. But today we didn't even touch on that. Over the past 25 years, SAF has founded and successfully developed the Pathway Group, Nationwide Care Services, Nationwide Care Pharmacy, F5 Foster Care, and ThinkFest events. He founded the Pathway Group from a sense of duty to change lives by promoting education, work skills and diversity. But this isn't where he started out in life. First following his father into factory work and then embracing education and finding success in the financial world until starting a care business showed him his real mission. So hello, Saf, and welcome to the Phoenix Conversations. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great to have you here. So, Saf, I usually start by asking people where they grew up, how they grew up, what they were like as a child. So tell me about the young Safaraz and what he was like as a little boy, what your home was like.
Well, it's going back a little while, Lucy, as you can probably tell. I'm Birmingham born and bred to parents from Kashmiri background. My father and mother both from what we call Azad Kashmir, which is on the Pakistan side. My father came in the 1950s for labouring work. The opportunities were there, and he did that for a number of years, mainly in the titanium industry. So his main career was with a company called IMI. He was a blue-collar worker, and he did that altogether for 28 years. And I was born early 19s in Birmingham. Didn't really understand a word of English because the family didn't speak English at all at home. For the first 4 or 5 years I was at home. Went to nursery fairly late. It was a bit of a shock in terms of seeing other people and just how Birmingham was at the time, completely different to what it is now. The biggest challenge initially in the early days was the fact that I just didn't really get into education. Not the fact that I didn't like it, it's just the fact that I struggled. It wasn't something that my parents were that interested in. There was no real ambition, and I didn't see it as something that was the future. My father, had a fairly decent job at the IMI, and I thought there was an opportunity there. And he kept on saying, there's jobs there. We're always looking for work, and I just thought, I'm going to go into the factory. Which is what I did. Firstly, I got my GCSEs. Every single one of them was a disaster. I thought I was going to do better than I did, but I got into the factory, worked in IMI, and that's when it hit me really to say, this is my life now, and I don't think I want to do this. This is actually hard work. I appreciated what my father was doing, the shifts that they were doing, 12-hour shifts. Really appreciated him in terms of his work and his focus, and I thought, it's not for me. I really don't want to do it. And then I thought, I need to look at how do I get out of this, and the only way is through education. And education is the first route in terms of the social mobility ladder. And I thought, okay, I need to re-look at this. And because I failed all my GCSEs, the O levels wasn't an opportunity, A levels wasn't even an opportunity. So I thought BTEC is the option, and I've got to really focus. So I did a BTEC qualification in business and finance, really focused in terms of what I needed to do, achieved distinctions, did really well, and got into a degree program, first in my family to do a degree qualification. And did banking and financial services, Lucy, and did that for a while. Did really well because I was not only doing the degree, but I was doing extra qualifications on top as well. So I had 2 or 3 additional qualifications that I was doing in addition to the degree, sort of specialist courses such as pensions, sort of calculations, and sort of really technical technical work, and I came out of that and went into the profession that I thought was my profession which was financial services, banking and financial services, and that wasn't the case, Lucy. But I thought at the time that this was my profession for life. To be frank with you.
So would it be fair to say then that your first kind of personal reinvention was realizing that actually educate, even after the kind of complete failure of your GCSEs, that education was the way forward for you, and being part of the factory life was not going to be what you wanted? You weren't going to follow in your father's footsteps. Would that be the first kind of reinvention?
Absolutely, Lucy. I had no choice. Partly, you have no choice. Either your parents have social capital, or you have actual capital behind you. And if you have none of those, then you have to look at your skills, and education is, for most of us, is the route in terms of progressing in life. And there is no other way. You got to build your skills. You got to build your knowledge, and you got to gain your qualifications. Or now maybe it's slightly different in terms of having skills or knowledge and so forth. But initially, if you want to earn some money, it has to be through work and through getting gainful employment, and people are only going to employ you if you have something to add, and it's usually qualifications and showing people that you can do things. So absolutely, I think it's changed a little bit, Lucy, but there's more routes and more opportunities now. Education is still predominantly the main route in terms of progressing in life. So that's where I focused on that, and I became a studious person, and really went in full both feet, and maxed the opportunity. And we were lucky at the time. Our degrees were being paid for. We had a grant as well on top. So university life wasn't that hard. We were lucky in terms of, there's no real debt. I had a part-time job. And that's the only reason I found getting a job afterwards quite easy, because I was able to say, not only have I got a degree, but I've got these additional 8 or 9 quite substantive qualifications. I might not have the experience of the sector, but I've got all of this additional stuff.
Yes, you're so right that when we were young, well, I'm older than you, but still, when we were young, getting tertiary education wasn't a question of going into debt. There were actual grants, and as you say, payments. You could do part-time jobs, and it wasn't, should I do it because it's going to cost me so much, but it's there for the taking. So you then kind of reinvented yourself as a financial services person, somebody who was in the world of money, finance, banking, and you did that for quite a long time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, Lucy. So I became a financial advisor, independent financial advisor, started working with a wealth management company, and started doing sort of portfolio analysis and behind the scenes work for them as well. And did that for a little while. I would say fairly successful in terms of that career, but I never saw myself in terms of a leader or a manager. So I never went for management type roles. I always went for roles predominantly in the background, or working with clients on a one-to-one basis, but not necessarily managing teams or people. And in the sector that we're in, unless you became a manager of people, you're not really going to progress. Technical skills only brought you up to a certain level, and progression only comes in certain fields when you're managing teams and managing other people. So there's a bit of a plateau in terms of my career, and partly because of myself and the way I was, very introverted. Also, again, very unsure of myself, even though I had the qualifications. Probably I did lack a lot of ambition, and I thought, this is okay for me, and this is for the people, who can speak better than I can, who are better educated, who gone to grammar school or public school, private school, and those sort of individuals as opposed to myself. So I had this niggle in my head that I'm from an inner city Birmingham area, Alum Rock, and I'm doing well, and this is for different class of people, and I leave that to them, and I've probably lived with that with most of my life, to say, what, know your place in society. This is where you are. That's what you need to do, and so forth. However, there was an opportunity that came by where the Financial Services Act came in, and the governments were reviewing the regulators were reviewing or getting the banks and the financial services companies to review how they've acted and behaved, particularly in the last 15 to 20 years. Because it was very unregulated, there was a lot of mis-selling scandals. Pensions was probably one of the biggest mis-selling scandals. Those pensions are long gone now for most of us, but those defined benefit schemes where people were very much encouraged to transfer out or opt out, and those transferring out or opting out in most cases wasn't the right thing, and people lost a lot of money. The miners were nearly 100%. They all opted out. Teachers' pension schemes, most of them opted out, and financial services companies targeted a lot of the public sector workers, particularly with regard to how generous the schemes were. They targeted also a lot of the blue chip companies as well. So and got them to opt out. And said, you could take your pension with you, and in fact, it was the wrong advice. The same thing with endowment policies. Supposed to don't repayment mortgage, take an endowment mortgage. In fact, the assumptions or the conditions that they were mentioning weren't correct, and the risk wasn't really discussed. So a lot of mis-selling was taking place. It wasn't fit for purpose. The institutions were tasked to review every single product that they've sold. The amount of work was huge. So there was a new market that opened up for consultants to come in, who've got qualifications, who've got experience, to actually start reviewing these policies for the financial services organizations. Otherwise, they would be facing penalties and fines, and that created a whole sector of interims and consultants. I looked at that, and I was, reasonably secure in my work. I was comfortable in the work. Had a family as well. Lucy had 2 children, and I thought to myself, okay, this is something very lucrative, and I'm not sure if it's going to be there for the rest of my life. I've got a job here. I've got a pension here as well with my job, and I'm very tempted to leave. It was a bit of a calculated risk. It wasn't a major risk because I knew the work was there at least for a good few years, 4 or 5 years. I thought it's something that I feel like I should do, which is what I did, and I didn't regret it, but it was hard for me because I've always lived at home and I hadn't gone anywhere outside Birmingham, to be frank with you. I've never been to London, never been outside West Midlands, hardly ever went to the city centre, to be frank with you, even in Birmingham. I was in my little area. I went to either work and back, or university or college back, and, in my sort of very local area, 5-mile radius, this was my sort of area. There's no holidays, nothing like that, so never went anywhere. And my first opportunity was in Cardiff, and went there for a stint of 6 months.
That must have been quite a shock to the system. I mean, that sounds like a sort of another reinvention of you from a safe, secure, employed position into literally going out into the world and being a consultant and much less secure, and also changing your environment as well.
I had to set up a company at the time, and it wasn't easy. And I went and went to Cardiff, and then I travelled. Is a massive city for financial services. I was in Leeds for a little while, Halifax with the Halifax Building Society, Glasgow with HBOS, Halifax Bank of Scotland. Many clients, many different clients. But I was working for an agency, a consultant, very large consultancy firm. They, but the clients were all over: pension company, actuarial companies, and different sort of financial services companies. I did that for a little while, and I found myself in a position where I had a little bit of money in my pocket, and I thought, okay, I didn't expect that, because I've always sort of lived hand to mouth to a certain level. I didn't regard myself as poor, but I wouldn't say I had extra funds. So the mindset was, it's just a working class mindset. And I had a little bit more money, and I thought, okay, I'm in a unique position, and I thought maybe this might give me an opportunity to become some sort of business owner, entrepreneur. The entrepreneur word wasn't in my dictionary, but I wanted to set up a business, and I thought, what can I do? And I do what I do, which is research. So I started researching in the libraries where I was, researching keynotes and market intelligence products, and to say, what's the opportunities, what are the demographics saying, what are the things that are going to do well in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And one of the things that kept on coming back was the demographics of the UK population. So the care sector kept coming up. Some of the challenges in the public sector kept coming up as well. So the public sector used to do a lot of delivery of services. So they used to deliver all the services, and they were transitioning from delivery to commissioning. So rather than delivering services, they start procuring and commissioning other companies to deliver. So the whole tendering opportunities were coming on board. Foster care is a market as well, which is probably slower than others, where most of the delivery is still with the local authorities. But there's a lot of independent financial foster care agencies have come up. But the market now is moving towards IFAs skills as well. A lot of the local authorities used to deliver all the skills, all the colleges. Nearly 98% was delivered by public sector institutions. Now it's something like 15%. Most of it is done by private organizations. So there's transitions taking place. So I started getting interested in how public contracts work, how public tenders work, and I started looking at that in terms of those opportunities, and really started understanding what that looks like. So the first foray in terms of private to business was the health and social care sector, Lucy.
And I think that really changed you, didn't it? That going into that care sector gave you another kind of view of life and changed your attitude.
Yeah, it did. I mean, my reasons for getting in, I just saw it as a business opportunity. I thought, what, the numbers look great, the opportunities are there, and this is what we need to do. And I just went for it from a commercial end, and the numbers just made sense, and that's the reason I looked at it. And that's the same reason when I went into contracting, the numbers worked and the numbers made sense. But when I got into it, I really understood the sector itself, the people and social workers, the care workers, some of the people who've been affected by like my mind changed. Some of the stories where unfortunately somebody's had a car accident and their whole life just changes like that, and they need care. And you talk to them about their life and what's happened, and it just shocks you. Somebody quite suddenly having an illness, and it just changes your mind completely when you're dealing with it, and you're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. So initially I'm coming in from a business head-on, and then I'm seeing all of these situations, and my sort of gratitude and where I am in life just comes in, and it affects you. And I start thinking, okay, you know what, this is completely different to what I'm thinking. I was looking at it from a commercial head on, but I think this is where my heart is as well. I want to really look at this. I started changing. I started becoming a little bit more religious as well in my life. To be frank with you as well, a bit more spiritual, a bit more global as well. Started taking interest in the world, which I didn't really. I was very narrow in my thinking. I started getting more interested in politics. What's the country doing, and looking at the news and things like that. I started being more aware, more conscious of society, of community, of people, what was working, what wasn't working, what the government was doing, what they were doing wrong continuously, how decisions were made on short-term thinking, those sort of things really, Lucy. That and partly that gets you going. You get a little bit annoyed, a bit Citizen Smith like, you start thinking, I need to, and you start lobbying things and all the rest of it, and then you start thinking, okay, you know what, it is the sector that I want to work in. I want to work in this arena, and I still view that in terms of if I want to work in that sector, and that's why I've sort of gone into sort of social entrepreneurship as opposed to entrepreneurship.
It was quite a serious reinvention for you kind of in midlife, that you've become a social entrepreneur, and that's what you're known for really now. The awards that you've set up, the apprenticeship awards, the networks that support communities, you've done so much in that area, and that really is a very different person to the one who started out thinking, local banking, employed, that will be my life.
Yeah. I mean, Lucy, as I said, I didn't really have much ambition for myself initially. And that partly changed to ambition for the work that we do. And it wasn't about career ambition. It became ambition about impact and outcomes and opportunities and, trying to change things slowly and looking at things. So, we set up a form of sort of lobbying and organizations as well, and knocking on the door where we felt things weren't right. So one of the things I'm probably known for is the Multicultural Apprenticeship and Skills Alliance, the Multicultural Apprenticeship Awards, and the brands that we've created, Apprenticeship Diversity and Social Mobility Forum. And partly because I felt there was some mistakes being made with how the degree programs were promoted, how, universities were pushed in terms of this is the gold system here and apprenticeships are for people who have no choice. That really, even though I didn't do an apprenticeship program myself, I knew what they were doing was not right, and it wasn't right for society, for the community. And I saw that this year. I saw there's particularly with the British Asian community, there was many of them going into university and then finding themselves unemployed or underemployed in terms of not being able to gain employment in the field that they've studied. And at the same time, there's many of them also at the same time which were unemployed, NEETs, not in education, employment or training. And what we found was that they weren't aware of apprenticeship programs. They weren't aware of other routes apart from university. So, parents only knew that, if you want to be successful, you've got to go down the university route. It's actually not fit for purpose. And the demographics also stated that university having targets to say 50% of the population, needs to go to university just wasn't right. It was a benchmark that, it was a great mantra, education, integration, a great thing to start initiating, but it wasn't something that was the skills strategy for the next 10, 15 years. It wasn't right. And employers were saying that the fact that we can't get the right people, we can't get the right talent. And initially, people went down the university route because they were wanting to showcase to employers that they can learn and they had the ability to gain knowledge and adapt. That was one of the main reasons for people going down the university route, but it wasn't the skills that what businesses wanted. A lot of the business wanted to nurture people. They wanted to, hone their skills. They wanted individuals who actually brought a different way of thinking as well. And they just didn't have the right people applying. And we said, there's a shortage of people. And that's one of the reasons why we initially called it the Asian Apprenticeship Awards. We got a lot of stick for that as well initially, but there was just hardly any British Asians going down the apprenticeship route because there was a stigma attached. There was a stigma attached to apprenticeships because people thought they were for people who have no choice. It's a second choice for many. So if you can't get down the academic route, then you know what? If you fail that, then go down this route. And it's not the case, and it's never really been the case. And it's also people misunderstood apprenticeships to be just for blue collar jobs. It's a misunderstanding. So we had to do a little bit of work, and truth be told, governments don't do this on their own unless change happens. Nobody changes themselves, so you have to lobby, and lobby's become a bit of a dirty word now because, people misunderstand what it is, but you have campaigns, you have to have causes. And you have to not necessarily educate, but you have to inform people in terms of this isn't the be all end all, and there's other ways to look at things, and that's what we've sort of been doing outside the day job because sometimes it's a risk.
It's now the Multicultural Apprentice Awards, isn't it?
It's
I think
absolutely, Lucy. It's now become the multicultural. We became from the Asian Apprenticeship Awards to the BAME Apprenticeship Awards, BAME. And again, we changed tack to have a word which was more open for public sector as well to support. So BAME BAME was an accepted word within the public arena, and we changed to BAME Apprenticeship Awards. And then again, a couple of reports came out where the government said, well, BAME is not it's not a helpful word. And then multicultural came in, and multicultural is more of a celebratory word. And so we rebranded as Multicultural Apprenticeship Awards, Multicultural Apprenticeship Skills Alliance. And that's what we've been known for the last sort of 5 years now, 4 years. And that's the work that we've been doing in terms of diversity. But we've got many other initiatives that we do as well. And it's to do with sort of mainly employability skills programs, how you get people back into employment. I still have a bit of a beam on bonnet in terms of the welfare state, how it works and how it doesn't incentivize work. We're not giving enough young people the opportunities that they need in terms of work experience. We need to support employers more, particularly SME employers. They're your biggest employers in the country and they will always be your biggest employers. And we need to focus on what the SME employers need. And we don't seem to have that. Even in terms of the programs, the courses, they're not necessarily fit for purpose. The way we teach, I just find it very, very troublesome.
You have you've been awarded an MBE in the latest New Year's Honours list, and that's for your work in diversity and business. So congratulations on that. That is a recognition, I think, of your reinvention of someone who, started small and has grown and looked out into the world and seen what needed changing and taken action. So many congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Saf, just to finish off, you've been through a number of changes and reinventions in your life. If there's somebody out there who is facing change and need to reinvent themselves, what piece of advice would you offer them, having been through it yourself?
I mean, Lucy, I've reinvention or change has been constant to me, and partly it's been brought to me, and partly because of hopes and aspirations, and feeling the fact that there's more to it. Often, I mean, again, in terms of business owner, you're a business owner, Lucy. We go through transitions where we sometimes fall out of love with our business. It's not the same anymore. We don't have the energy, and we start looking at the new shiny things, and that's how sometimes our mind is fixed. The day-to-day drudgery and so forth takes over, and sometimes we can make possibly a permanent decision based on a temporary feeling, because we're going through a moment where you're not feeling right, but you start thinking about change and transitioning, and really you're just going through a phase, and the phase is difficulties or obstacles, and you might make a sort of a long-term decision, but you're just going through a small phase or a tiny phase. So I think for me, it's like, that's the mantra I use. I don't never make a permanent decision based on a temporary feeling. I remind myself of that, and don't always think about the shiny things. But for me, whenever I've thought about transitioning or reinventing, it's usually subtracting, taking away, before we sort of looking at growth or adding. So that's my first thing in terms of that. Is it just a temporary thing, and then start thinking in terms of small micro changes. I actually quite dislike situations where somebody says, I'm an AI guru now, I'm a digital guru, and it doesn't really appeal to me too much, because I think that's reinvention for the sake of reinvention. So micro changes and incremental sort of changes. I try and de-risk everything. So just wherever you can, not gamble your whole career and reputation, because if you get it wrong, your reputation is everything, and you gotta, it's gonna drain you, and you have to be very, very careful. So you have to de-risk. I would suggest reinvention does start with the truth, but you got to be truthful to yourself. Is my first thing. Don't start telling yourself lies or telling yourself things that are not necessarily true. So be truthful to yourself. But I think reinvention starts with that. I would suggest with truth.
That's brilliant, Saf. Thank you. That is a really, really good piece of advice. Thank you so much for taking us through your journey and your reinvention points. It's been fascinating. And once again, congratulations on your MBE, and thank you for being here today.
Lucy, thank you for the opportunity. Congratulations to you as well. It was delightful to hear that you both of us were at the same year. You're seeing the king or whoever it is a lot sooner than I am. So wish you well with that, Lucy.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
And hats off to you. We've been working together now for a little while as well. And I've got nothing but respect for you, Lucy. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you so much, Saf.
Thank you.
Saf, thank you for sharing your journey and reinvention points. It was inspiring to hear how, from growing up in an immigrant family with limited aspirations, you first struck out on your own to find educational and financial success. Then a purely commercial move into the care industry showed you a heart-led mission. And congratulations again on the recognition of your MBE for all your community work. If you're standing on the edge of change or just need proof that reinvention can come from anywhere at any time, listen to SAFARAZ's excellent advice and subscribe now to the Phoenix Conversations on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, or maybe all three. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, X, and Facebook. Due to my unspellable and unpronounceable name, I am the only Lucy Macara on the internet, and I'd love to hear your reinvention story. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.